Hello and welcome to Westwind, an audio podcast about cancer, technology in medicine, and policy issues. I'm host and medical oncologist Dr. Jack West from the City of Hope Comprehensive Cancer Center in the Los Angeles area. You can find Westwind material at beaconmedic1word.com, at iTunes, or just about anywhere you get podcast content. I would just ask that you show your interest and support by subscribing, commenting, sharing by telling friends and colleagues in person and on social media, and rating it however you feel is appropriate. You can also share your ideas and opinions by emailing us at westwindpodcast@gmail.com. I'm very happy to be joined today by Dr. Marina Garassino, who is the Chief of the Medical Thoracic Oncology Unit at the Istituto Nazionale di Tumori in Milan, Italy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Hello, Jack.
I like to start with background going way back. I know that you did essentially all of your training in Milan. Did you also grow up there?
Yes, I was born in Milano, but my father was an engineer working in IBM, so we lived in several cities in Italy. But mainly all my studies were at university in Milano, in Italy.
Did you grow up with an idea that you might go into medicine? Was that always part of a plan, or did you have other family members in medicine?
No. My father was an engineer and my mother was an interpreter. And it was a funny story because my father was very pragmatic. And he told me, Marina, you can do or engineer or medicine. But I was terrible in maths, so I could survive doing medicine. Then my mother was ill of breast cancer. And so I decided to do oncology, but I decided medicine not just as a mission, but just because I had to decide between and medicine.
That's interesting. How is the system for medical training there? Is it something where you go straight into medicine as a concentration in university, or do you do more broad university training and other things before focusing on medicine?
It's different from the US preparation. So you have to pass an exam, which is very, very restrictive. So you can arrive at the Faculty of Medicine with a selection of at least 1 out of 200 at the time I started. And then you have 6 years. The first 3 years are you do a lot of biology, a lot of chemistry, a lot of physics. So not just jumping in medicine. You start to do some medicine at the third year when you do anatomy, you do physiology, you start to do some pathology. But the first 2 years are a general preparation to what you do next.
You had mentioned that you have the personal connection from your mother with breast cancer. I'm sorry about that. What was it that drew you to oncology? Some people might have been inclined to do anything other than oncology after that personal connection. So what was it that led you to be attracted to cancer care?
Yeah. So my mother had breast cancer when I was 9 years old. So I was very, very young, and my sister was 5 years old. So, and she received also the first the quadrantectomy in the same institute where I work. There was at the time Veronesi who invented the quadrantectomy. So my mother was one of the first people who received the quadrantectomy instead of the mastectomy, and she received also the complementary radiotherapy. We were in the beginning of the 80s, so it was very in the beginning of the story of breast cancer in Italy, and in particular in my institute. Then she went very well because for 10 years she was totally without relapse, and she had a relapse, and unfortunately she died when I was at university. So I had always the desire to do something for oncology. Although I had two souls, one was for the artistic studies and the other one was for medicine. So I did medicine, and then I think that my natural story was for oncology.
I also saw that you did a fellowship in pediatric oncology. Were you planning to become a pediatric oncologist and then change your mind, or did you just want to have a very broad training in oncology that included pediatric oncology as one component?
Yeah, so I can say that it was my desire to do a to be a pediatric oncologist, and so I did everything to be prepared to do the pediatric oncologist and to move to another hospital, which was San Raffaele, where I was trained. But at the time, there was a very strange story. And I like to mention this because sometimes the young people think that their career must be straight and without obstacles. And sometimes what the life can give you is much more than what you can expect or what you plan in advance. And I was trained as a pediatric oncologist, but at the time there was a problem in the hospital where I had to have the position as a pediatric oncologist. And so my position wasn't there. And so I started to move to another hospital to be a normal oncologist. And then there was also all my story behind the research on lung cancer that was, again, not very planned, but is what sometimes the life can give you also if it is not planned.
What led you into thoracic oncology in particular, of all of the areas of oncology that you could have pursued?
So at the time, it was 2006, and I was working in a very big general hospital in Milano doing the clinical oncology in general. And I was in ASCO, and I listened to Lisa Sequist presenting for the first time the data for EGFR mutated patients. And she told that 70% of the EGFR mutated patients could respond to EGFR inhibitors. And it was the time where, did you remember the BR21 erlotinib over placebo was published in the New England Journal of Medicine? And so I started to write a grant saying, okay, if EGFR mutated patients respond to EGFR mutations, and they, in the Western countries, they represent 10%, who are the other people responding to erlotinib? And so I applied for the grant that was the Taylor trial that was published in 2013 in Lancet Oncology, and received a regulatory agency in Italy for the comparisons of erlotinib to those. When I received the grant, my career in lung started. I started to do more or less only thoracic malignancies.
I am impressed that you have been in Milan really from the beginning of your career. And I think most of our Italian colleagues have also maintained a pretty stable position and locations at their Italian centers over sometimes a long interval in their careers. Is that because people are just very happy where they are, or are there hurdles to moving to other institutions and positions within Italy or Europe in general?
So the story was that the regulatory agency at the time was very well directed in Italy by an inspiring person, and there were a lot of money to do independent academic research in Italy. And I used all my friends that were working in the different areas in Italy, and we funded together the Young Association of the Italian Medical Oncologists. And so all together we were able to run the trial in Italy. So at the end we were about 52 hospitals around Italy joining the trial.
I must confess that I found Milan intimidating when I visited. I was just backpacking after college, but I felt like I was the worst dressed person in the city, including people living on the streets. And I also don't think I have any style. What do you like best about Milan after living there really all your life?
So this is a good question because you know that in Milano, in Italy, we have a lot of competition because we have Rome, we have Venice, we have Florence. So Milano was the Cinderella of the Italian cities. Maybe the worst part, the most industrial part of the city. The people in Milano are working day and night. They are famous to be hard workers. And so in the 70s started the story of the fashion and design in Milano, because this is a very industrial city. So maybe you know Giorgio Armani, you know Valentino, you know Prada. So Prada is maybe also in Florence. But so the city started to grow up a lot for the fashion. And I understand that in particular in Milano, the people are dressed in a different way. They have different shoes, different bags. So it's also for design is the same. And now in the last years, there was also the Expo, the Universal Expositions, that was 3 years ago. And there was a fantastic mare, a sequence of fantastic mares. And so the city now became very, very nice. There is a new skyline. It's full of museums. It's full of art. So it's not a classical Italian city, but it's amazing.
I'm interested in how you feel that Italy has changed over the last couple of decades in any ways, both personally and socially and professionally in the medical world.
Well, Italy, I think, is in a very big cultural crisis now. Because you see, we had a lot of strange governments, and there is not anymore a leader. But I think that maybe this can apply also to other countries, not just to Italy. So I think that maybe all the globalization and also the web connections created a different culture, and it's very difficult to think what is sometimes we think that we need more thoughts, we need more ideas, need more vision. And so we are passing a very strong economical crisis, and there is still, I think, maybe more pronounced in Italy than in other countries, the problems of the gender balance, because, for example, in oncology, I think 1 out of 20 women are in a leadership position. Few of them have a professorship. So we are passing, I think, a cultural, a social and economical crisis. I hope that the new generation will contribute to grow up our culture again.
Now, I'd like to talk more about what it's like to raise your family over these last couple of decades. I know you have a couple of daughters. I don't know how long you've been really raising them largely as a single mother. Maybe you can talk a bit about that and what your hopes and expectations are for them, or what their own hopes are personally and professionally now in an evolving world.
So I have two daughters. One is Federica, she's 22, and she will be graduated in design in Milano next June. And Chiara, she's 20 and she's studying philosophy. So none of them is studying medicine. And I was divorced when I was 35. And so I was a truly single mom. So it was hard because you have to do multiple works. And but what I tried to say to my daughters is that they have to think that they are citizens of the world and not just Italian citizens. And nowadays, what it is important is to grow up your philosophy, not just because she's doing philosophy, your thoughts, your vision, and to stay as much as possible connected with the people in the world. And Federica tried to apply now in New York to the School of Design. I don't know the results. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But I think that wherever they go, they have to think that we are not anymore in a place where you can stay in a place, but you must be connected in all over the world. And to stay always connected also with your desires and your dreams.
I think it is a much more global world, including in academics, medicine. We are much more of a global oncology community, thoracic community than I think it ever was. I think it's a big change. We have a lot more international meetings and opportunities to connect. So I think it's wonderful, but I think it's definitely true in other areas like fashion design. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. I say also to Federica that she is doing design to go around the world to watch, to capture the differences, and the differences can be big opportunities.
I also have to give you special credit for raising your daughters as you did as a single parent. I think that many of us in medicine struggle with a work and life balance, even when we aren't doing it as single parents. I think it can be very challenging to honor our commitments and priorities as we want to, and just dedicate the time we want to develop our careers, and also have special time to raise and help develop our own children, have relationships with our parents and our spouses. So I think it is a remarkable challenge, I would have to imagine, to develop the career trajectory that you've had and have such an international impact while also maintaining these strong relationships with your daughters.
Yeah, I think that, yes, it's challenging, but it is also feasible. And this is all the women working with me. I say, you can do it. It's not just because I am Wonder Woman. You can do it. You need a very good organization, because you need a very good organization. So if you are late in the hospital, you must have a backup in your house. So everything must be very well organized. But I think that the quality of the time plays a fundamental role. So when you are at home, you must stay present with your mind, with your love, with your daughter. Maybe 2 hours can be better than 20 hours if you are not really connected with their lives.
I'm impressed that you are one of many women in thoracic oncology in Italy, in Europe, who have developed a strong career in a society that can be very biased against women. And I'm interested in whether you felt significant headwinds, resistance as your career has continued, or whether you felt that it has been a more opportune time in the last 10, 15 years to follow the path that has led you to success in thoracic oncology.
This is a good question. So, in Italy, the situation of women is very, very difficult. So, for example, there are only 20 women which are in a leadership position in Italy. Very few are full professors. So, in Italy, the situation is very, very difficult and in very old style. But I think that for my life, the key was exactly to stay connected with other women around the world. And I received a lot of support from women in Spain, in UK, in US. And I can tell you that you know very well the situation in thoracic oncology is of a very nice community of friendly people, and sometimes I say that I have more relationships with people maybe in other countries than in my country. So I think that again the key is not to consider your hospital, your community, your country the only possibility that you have to develop your career. So you must think that we are treating lung cancer people, we are doing research in lung cancer in a global situation and not just in a country-based situation. If I had to consider only Italy, for me it was a nightmare.
That's interesting. And I think it's great that you point out that the global view of a field also provides the opportunity to receive support from a global community, even if it's not necessarily there locally. I want to ask also, I know that you currently mentor several women as junior trainees, junior faculty, and fellows. How important is it to you to help promote women in oncology and clinical research and perhaps lower some of the barriers that you might have felt?
I think that this is very important because in the majority of the countries there are stereotypes for which the man is the physicians and the women is a nurse. If you think also to the paintings in the history, you can see that, for example, Picasso represented the surgeon as a man and the nurse as a woman. So we have some unconscious types for which the women must stay at home. They cannot have a leadership position. So I think that we need a generation to change. But at the time being, I think that we have to force the presence of the women in the society to have a more balanced situation and vision of everything. And I was very impressed also on an editorial 2 weeks ago on Lancet that was exactly saying that a balance in gender will be important also for the health development. So there are two issues. First, giving to the women the opportunities, and second, men, they have sometimes different skills that can be complementary to the men, and so a balanced situation can give, in my opinion, more opportunities.
That's great. I'd like to turn to ESMO as well. I know you've been very involved in both Italian educational and research initiatives and programs that are running across Europe, including ESMO. Not just from my perspective, but I think also based on the numbers, ESMO has grown remarkably over the past decade or so. Does the oncology community and research and education follow the pattern of the EU over that time in being less divided by individual country and more unified across Europe? Or is there still a clear Italian identity versus French or Spanish identity and work, as well as a community in the professional sphere?
I think that several years ago, the situation was much different, was more different from now. And now there is a sort of major sharing of the things in Europe. So maybe we are becoming Europe now. So I think that ESMO is a good society to put all the single country ideas in the same society. So ESMO is doing a very big work to unifying Europe, and maybe not also Europe, because you know that ESMO has a large part also in Asia and in other countries. So again, I think that it's a very slow movement, because we have to go all together like an orchestra, but it's going on. So I can see the development of a sort of identity of Europe, at least for medicine.
Very interesting. I want to ask, of all the professional activities that you've done and continue to do, including clinical care, developing research and educational programs, writing, are there things that you want to focus more or less on in the coming years, or do you want to try to balance all of these aspects on an ongoing basis as you have?
You know, when you increase your position, unfortunately, you have more organizational roles than what you had in the beginning. So if I could say my desire, I would like to do my own research, my writing my protocols, writing my papers. But when with the maturity, you can understand that if you train a young generation of people committed like you to research and to the patient cares, you are able to amplify your dreams. So I think that mentoring young people and creating people very motivated to the high quality patient care and high quality of research can be much more helpful than what you can do alone always. Sometimes it's not always so funny and so like doing what you want every day, but you can perceive that a group and a team very motivated can amplify what you can do.
Excellent. I'm also intrigued by some of the other work that you do. I know that you're a photographer and you're also deeply committed to contemporary art. And you'd mentioned that you have that side of your soul, your personality. I want to know if you can just talk a bit about that aspect of your life, what you do, and really whether this has always been an aspect of your life or a more recent evolution.
Yeah. This is my second or first soul. I don't know. I really love arts, and I think that this is one of the reasons why maybe my first daughter decided to do design, which is a sort of art, and she's trying to be a photographer, a fashion photographer. And I try to go to all the exhibitions I can, to all the museums I can, and to create some paintings. So all the time that you have is not so much, but I think that perhaps this was one of the way for which I spent a lot of time with my daughters. So we were together to the exhibitions, to, I don't know, Teatro alla Scala, to listen to the music, to see, and it was a way to stay together and to enjoy our lives. And I'm sitting also in the scientific committee, because there is also a scientific committee for arts of a contemporary foundation. And so sometimes I spend some time to say what's my feeling on the vision of the next art. So it's a funny part of my life. I would like to have more time for this part, but I can do something.
I think it's great to have another aspect that complements the medical side of what you do and all the other stuff. It's good to have an outlet that is so creative, and I look forward to learning more about that from you.
Yeah. So, research and art, maybe they are the two coins of the same medal. So I don't think that they are so different. Sometimes I discuss this part with my daughters and they say, don't think that your mother is doing a sort of creative work. Then you can have other methods to express your creativity that can be paintings, photography, music, whatever. But the origin is always the creativity, the vision to see something in a different way with your perspective. So I think that our work is creative in a certain way.
It is. It's not the same as contemporary art, though.
But you think that also contemporary art that is reflecting our social crisis, our crisis of thoughts. So everything that you see in the performances, sometimes they represent exactly this. And now we are coming back also to an old type of arts, but it's always the expression of the society.
Excellent. Marina, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat today. I know it's late over there. I really look forward to seeing you personally at an upcoming meeting to talk more. Have a great night.
Hello, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. The West Wind Podcast is a Beacon Medical Interchange production with sound engineering and distribution by Mark Lindsay of Talking Speaker. We hope you'll be motivated to subscribe, whether at beaconmedic.com, through iTunes, or through another podcast service. Please also rate it, and I hope you'll be inclined to tell friends and colleagues in real life and on social media. We're always happy to get your suggestions and other input at westwindpodcast@gmail.com. Talk to you again soon.